guys! So I've been a nurse for a little bit over a year now, and I absolutely love it. I've learned so much, and I've gotten to go and be a part of so many different experiences, but I wouldn't have been able to do that unless I passed my NCLEX and got my nursing license. So I decided to do a video about 5 tips I have for preparing for the NCLEX, because when I was studying for the NCLEX, I wanted to know how other people were preparing for the NCLEX, especially those that were already nurses and had passed the NCLEX, because then you know it worked, right? So I took my NCLEX, I passed on the first time, 75 questions, and these are the tips I have for when I studied and prepped for my NCLEX exam, okay? So I'm just gonna go ahead and jump into it. So the first tip I have is to find your designated study zone. Now, this can be in your bedroom, which I wouldn't really study on the bed because I would like to think of like my bedroom as just like my place where I sleep and that's it, you know? I don't want to go in there and think of schoolwork, you know? So for me, I didn't study in my bedroom, and I moved, but before, when I was studying for my NCLEX, the house that I lived at was kind of small. We just had a living room and we had a little kitchen, and off to the kitchen was a little side table thing that was like our dining room, and it was just like a little high top table. And for me, that was one of my study areas. I had 2 different study areas, and kitchen, and then my other designated area was the library. Now, I didn't go to the library for school because I had to commute kind of far to go to school. So my library for school was about an hour or so away. So it was just convenient for me to go to my local library. And I actually like that better because I didn't have to run into other nursing students and my nursing friends and stuff, because I love my nursing friends. They were great. But to study for the NCLEX, it just got everyone anxious, and I studied with my friends like once for the NCLEX, and then after that, I just really couldn't study with them because it just kind of brought up my anxiety level, and you can just feel everyone studying for the NCLEX in your class, and you'll feel what I'm talking about once you're studying for your NCLEX. And you really don't want to be anxious, you know, you really don't want to have to hear what everyone else has to say about one question, and you want us to be able to study at your own pace and not at the pace of others, you know? So for me, that's why I like to study on my own for my NCLEX. For the rest of nursing school, I would study on my own and study with friends, but the NCLEX was a totally different animal. I had to study on my own. But so I went to my local library, and it was great because it was quiet. We had these little cubicle looking things in my library, so I could just kind of block everyone else out of the library and study for like an hour or so or what have you. But yeah, so designated study zones were always my little kitchen table and the library. But it doesn't have to be 2 areas. It can just be 1 area, whatever is most convenient. For me, I wanted to do the library the most if I could, because it's just a great area for me. I knew I could focus really well. But on the days like the weekends when the library was closed in my area, or if it was too late at night or early in the morning or something where I had to do it after work or what have you, then I had to be able to do it on the kitchen counter. So we didn't really eat too much in our kitchen counter anyways, but yeah, or my kitchen table. Keep on saying kitchen counter, because now I have a kitchen counter. When I was a nursing student, I didn't have a kitchen counter. We had just that table. So, but yeah, my kitchen table and the library. Tip number 2 is don't register to take the NCLEX with a friend. And this is a whole nother, this is just the same thing about how I studied with my friends and I just couldn't study. I registered for my NCLEX as soon as I could. So as soon as I got my approval to test letter, it's also called the ATT letter. Once you get that letter, you're able to register for your NCLEX. And so what I did is I picked the first one that I could, and I registered for the day after my 22nd birthday, which I'm glad that I passed, but if I didn't pass, I would have been like, yeah, it's because I did it after my birthday, you know? But luckily I passed. But I didn't register with any of my friends, and I took it closer to my house than closer to my school. So a lot of student nurses that I went to school with, they did it closer to the school because a lot of them lived in that area, but I had to commute kind of far because I wasn't going to move for school. But I registered alone, and the only person that went with me was my boyfriend, and we stayed the night in the town that the testing center was at, and that's how I did that. So I didn't have to really, wait for my friend to finish or, pace myself at my friend's pace, That was another thing that I didn't want to worry about because there was a couple people in my class who took the NCLEX with friends, and then one person would pass, one person wouldn't, or they would both fail or what have you. And just seeing people in your class, like in the testing center, it just kind of gets you all nervous because it's different than taking a test for school. It's not, you got a lower grade than others. It's you pass or you fail. There's no in between for this test, So, yeah, I didn't register with a friend, and I don't suggest registering with a friend. If you want to register with a friend, then by all means go ahead and register with your friend. But I could not do that, and I have kudos to those who passed. If you and all your friends took it at the same time and all passed, then that's awesome. But for myself, I could not do it. So my third tip is to visit the testing center before you take the NCLEX. So this can either be the night before, the day before, a week before, 2 weeks, I don't care. But make sure you do it before the day of your NCLEX. That way you know exactly where the test is going to be taking place at, and you can kind of picture that place when you're on the way there. So for me, I stayed in this in a hotel that was actually like maybe 10 minutes or so from the testing center. So it wasn't too far. I knew where we could park and where we couldn't park. So I didn't really get too stressed out about everything because I knew what I had to do for the test and what the rooms looked like, They didn't let you go into the actual testing place, but they let us go inside of the building of where the testing center was at, which doesn't look like a school for the area I went to. I think mine was part of a bank. So it was super random, and if I didn't run into someone else that was also taking a test there, then I wouldn't know that was the testing site, actually. I would have been screwed. And my fourth tip is to study in small chunks rather than drawn out hours at a time. So for me, what I did is I would study for like 35, 45 minutes, and then I would take like a 10, 15 minute break or so, usually like 10 minutes, and just to eat, have a snack. I always had water with me when I studied, but I would always try and focus really hard for that 35, 45 minutes, and then I would, take a break after. Or for me, I did the Hearst review, and I would just finish one section of the Hearst review. So if for one part of the section it was endocrine, I would do whatever portion it was for one of the videos, and then after that, then I would stop, take a break, and then come back to it later. Because it was easier for me to retain all the information that I studied when I did it in small chunks rather than in long hours. So it just helps give your mind a break. And then my fifth one is not to study the night before the test, because there's really no point in studying the night before the test. If you are actually, I only had about 2 weeks to study after I got my ATT, which was, I was actually still like technically in school before I could register, or before my NCLEX. I was still technically in school when I got my ATT, and then school ended like just a few days later. But I only had a few weeks before I took my NCLEX to study. So I just did those small chunks throughout the day, and then the night before my NCLEX, I didn't do any studying that night. I think I may have studied a little bit that day, but that night it was my birthday. So I went out for my birthday, and actually my boyfriend took me to Hard Rock, and I went to the casino, and it was great. I was almost on the verge of being stressed that I did that, but it really took my mind off of studying for the NCLEX. And when I didn't drink or anything, I knew I didn't want to drink any alcohol or anything the night before my biggest test of my life, but I really got my mind off of taking the NCLEX, and it helped a ton. And I think it was a big reason why when I took my NCLEX I was just so calm, was because I knew, I am either going to pass or I'm going to fail. If I fail, then I'll just take it again. There really wasn't anything else for me to do about it. But like I said, luckily it all worked out. But yeah, so those are my 5 tips, and I hope that those tips helped you or helped you somehow, even if you don't use all 5 of them. If you just take a couple of them and apply that to your prepping for the NCLEX. So best of luck to you guys preparing for the NCLEX. Bye.